The brilliance of Liverpool this season and their ultimate mini blip since getting their hands on the Premier League title has reignited debates about who is the greatest team in the history of the English game. It's a topic which Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher covered on Monday Night Football back in February, although they used a points-based system over a 3-year period, awarding things like 5 points for a European Cup or Champions League and 2 points for an FA Cup to determine which teams were the best. That's all well and good, but it's also a little rudimentary, and does come with some pretty major flaws. The European Cup, for example, didn't start until the 1955-56 campaign, and an English team didn't compete until the following season, and as a consequence, no team prior to that made Sky Sports' list of the 12 greatest English teams of all time. English clubs were also banned from all European competitions for 5 years following the Heysel Stadium disaster, so a club like Everton, that was really strong during the mid to late 80s, suffers as a consequence. What's more, there was a time when the FA Cup was seen as the pinnacle of achievement within the English game, a greater accomplishment even than the First Division title, and that isn't really reflected in it being awarded with just 2 points based on the competition having lessened in importance to clubs, particularly over the last 10 years. It also takes into account zero consideration of the teams they were up against when they won those trophies. We know that competition is at times weaker or fiercer, so even if you could come up with some kind of flexible and reliable numerical metric for different trophies in different eras, it still wouldn't be a true reflection of a team's greatness. When considering the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time, we don't just say, well, Rocky Marciano because he never lost a fight. We take context into account. As you can probably tell then, I had a few qualms with that list, so I thought I'd take a stab at doing my own. There are many ingredients that make up greatness, I would argue, and whilst trophies are the ultimate indicator of success, I don't believe that they are the single distinguishing factor. There's no mathematical formula to my 7 then, they're just the teams who I think were the quote-unquote greatest in the history of the English game. But just like Sky Sports' Monday Night Football, I have looked at teams over a 3-year period, because otherwise you can get bogged down in the single best team in a single season, or the greatest dynasty over an entire decade, so I think having some restrictions in place helps. Honourable mentions will come between first and second place, and you may find a couple of clubs crop up more than once. Here are my views on the 7 greatest English football teams of all time. Manchester United, 1965-66 to 1967-68. Sir Matt Busby managed Manchester United for some 24 years in what has to go down as the most eventful single managerial stint in the history of football management in this country. Busby took charge at Old Trafford at the end of World War II, and a decade later, he had built something really special. His young side, nicknamed the Busby Babes, won 2 league titles and reached consecutive European Cup semi-finals as the first English side to compete in the competition, before disaster on a runway in Munich in 1958. Claiming the lives of 23 of the plane's 38 passengers, including 8 current Manchester United players. A rebuilding job unlike almost anything seen before in the English game is required, and that's what gives the great Manchester United team of the 1960s a special air of greatness. Make no mistake, they're not here on sympathy though. This was a team with a front 3 who all won the Ballon d'Or, a unique achievement in the history of the British game. In the 1964-65 season, Manchester United won their first league title since the Munich air disaster, but that season isn't included here since I have to limit it to a 3-season period. In the 3 seasons from the 1965-66 to 1967-68 campaigns, Manchester United finished 4th, 1st and 2nd in the First Division, reaching 1 European Cup semi-final in 1966 and becoming the first English club to win the European Cup in 1968, a decade on from having their team torn apart. This team will always be best remembered for the holy trinity of George Best, Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law, 3 of Britain's greatest ever players. But from Alex Stepney in goal to Nobby Stiles destroying everything in front of the defence, this was a team packed full of talent and character. Aston Villa, 1894-95 to 1896-97. I assume the researchers at Monday Night Football decided not to even look at anything prior to Bill Nicholson's great Spurs side of the 1960s, since even by their own criteria, long before the European Cup was formed, and considering the FA Cup to be a lesser trophy, this Aston Villa side should still have made their top 10. Back in the 1890s, the FA Cup was without a doubt the most important trophy any footballer could win, followed by the First Division title. Before the League Cup or European Cups were created, teams only had 2 fronts to compete on at that time, the League and the FA Cup. In 3 seasons, from the 1894-95 to the 1896-97 campaign, Aston Villa won 2 First Division titles and 2 FA Cups, so they essentially won 4 out of a possible 6 trophies during a 3-year period. Aston Villa signed perhaps world football's first £100 footballer in 1893, named Willie Groves, but their star man was England international Jack Davey, who could play in a variety of 4 positions. He scored 187 goals in 308 games for Villa, but the beauty of this team was the goals that they had throughout the team. In the early 1890s, Villa scored 89 goals in just 26 games, an average of almost 3.5 goals per game, and they continued to score prolifically during the 3 seasons in question. The Villains' domination during this period, at a time when there were only 2 trophies, was unmatched, and they were widely heralded as the finest football team yet. Arsenal, 2001-02 to 2003-04. Jumping more than a century forward from the great Aston Villa team of the 1890s, it can be difficult deciding which 3 seasons were the finest of Arsene Wenger's early years at Arsenal. For 8 years, from 1997 to 2005, Arsenal were an incredible team, but they were at their best from about 2001 to 2005. The 3 seasons I've gone for are the 2001-02 to 2003-04 campaigns, which begin with Arsenal winning an FA Cup and Premier League double and end with an invincible Premier League winning campaign. In total, during those 3 seasons, Arsenal won 2 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups and a Community Shield. The one thing missing from that great side, and from Arsenal's entire history, is obviously the Champions League, and the closest they came during the period in question was a quarter-final appearance, although they did go on to reach the final in 2006, which was actually after their dominance in the Premier League had come to an end. The lack of a Champions League prevents this side from cracking the top 3, but it doesn't prevent them from featuring. As I said, there's more to greatness than trophies alone, and this Arsenal side was simply a joy to watch. Built on a formidable backline containing the likes of Sol Campbell, Ashley Cole and Kolo Touré, Arsenal had sensational midfield balance with Gilberto Silva and Patrick Vieira, and majestic wide and forward options like Freddie Ljungberg, Robert Pires, Dennis Bergkamp and obviously Thierry Henry. This team could outplay or outfight you, they revolutionised the English game, and they won 5 trophies in 3 years to boot. Liverpool, 1975-76 to 1977-78. In terms of pure trophies, using Monday Night Football's metrics, the Liverpool team from the 1975-76 season through to the 1977-78 campaign is the greatest in the history of the English game, and a case can be made for this team by almost any criteria. Within the space of 3 seasons, under the stewardship of Bob Paisley, Liverpool won 2 First Division titles, 2 European Cups, 1 UEFA Cup, 1 European Super Cup, and 2 Charity Shields. It's rather unusual that such a brilliant team with such a knack for winning trophies failed to win the FA Cup or the League Cup during those 3 seasons, but nonetheless, it is a degree of dominance on the continent in particular that is unrivaled in the history of the English game. Bob Paisley picked up the baton from the fine foundations and success that had already been laid by Bill Shankly to become the Reds' most successful boss, playing a typical 4-4-2 that was so popular in Britain at the time, but playing it with a real attacking fervour. This 3-year period saw the transition from Kevin Keegan leading the Liverpool line to Kenny Dalglish, but both doing so with real distinction. The Reds had an excellent goalkeeper in Ray Clements, the brilliant Emlyn Hughes at centre-half, the likes of Jimmy Caisney and Callahan in midfield, and then obviously Keegan and later Dalglish up front, often partnered by John Toshak. Manchester United, 1998-99 to 2000-2001. As the only team to have won the 3 most prestigious trophies available to an English club, and therefore what you might call the only genuine treble winners, I think you would have to call Manchester United's 1998-99 team the greatest in the history of the English game in terms of a single season. Of course, we're not looking at single seasons, but rather periods of 3 years, but Manchester United's great treble winners still make an appearance, albeit in 3rd place, as part of the Red Devil side from the 1998-99 to the 2000-2001 campaign. Manchester United had begun dominating the English game when the Premier League began in 1992, but Alex Ferguson was yet to get his hands on the Champions League or even reach a final prior to 1999. It's in that season that we begin with a historic achievement as Manchester United battled brilliantly on 3 different fronts. This team could easily have won no trophies, having come close to being toppled by Arsenal in both the League and the FA Cup, and requiring the most dramatic finish to a European final of all time to overcome Bayern Munich in Barcelona in the final of the Champions League. Ferguson's men followed up their treble with 2 successive Premier League titles in a side famed for Manchester United's so-called class of '92, with names like Giggs, Beckham, Scholes, Butt and Neville, but also containing Peter Schmeichel and later Fabian Barthez in goal, the likes of Dennis Irwin and Jaap Stam at the back, Roy Keane driving the team on in midfield, and then an embarrassment of riches from Cole and York to Sheringham and Solskjaer up front. Manchester United 2006-07 to 2008-09. I'm afraid there is no way to really avoid the fact that Manchester United have had a number of great teams, including a handful under Sir Alex Ferguson alone, the greatest manager of all time in terms of overseeing the transition of a squad, and arguably the greatest full stop. To my mind, the Manchester United team of the mid to late 2000s, or from 2006 to 2009 to be specific, is the greatest Manchester United team over a 3-year period of all time. Ruthless in the Premier League, they won all 3 Premier League titles with remarkable consistency during this time, winning 89, 87 and then 90 points respectively. The club won 1 League Cup, 2 Charity Shields and 1 Champions League in 2008 on penalties against Chelsea. This Manchester United team was not as dominant outside of the Premier League as some others, but they faced daunting competition both domestically and on the continent. One could call these 3 years the Ronaldo years, since they were the 3 seasons in which the Portuguese superstar established himself as a generational talent, but that would be doing a disservice to his teammates. In Edwin van der Sar, Ferguson had finally found himself a true replacement for Peter Schmeichel. A centre-back combination of Vidic and Ferdinand was ironclad, Scholes and Giggs were as vital as ever, albeit their roles had changed, and Michael Carrick's role is not to be overlooked, and then finally, of course, a front 3 of Wayne Rooney, Carlos Tevez and Cristiano Ronaldo was just a phenomenal combination of talent, energy and sheer desire. A truly great team by almost any criteria. Honourable mentions. Every team who wins a Premier League or First Division title, or any piece of major silverware for that matter, has to be a great team, so it's impossible for me to mention every great team we've had in the English game. Some particularly great ones though, who came closest to featuring, include the odds-defying Nottingham Forest team from 1977 to 1980, that won 2 European Cups, 2 League Cups and 1 First Division title in 3 years, Herbert Chapman's legendary Huddersfield Town and Arsenal teams of the 1920s and 30s, both of whom won 3 consecutive First Division titles, but failed to get their hands on the FA Cup during those 3-year periods, and Everton's magnificent side from 1984 to 1987, as mentioned in the introduction, that won 2 First Division titles in 3 years, as well as a European Cup Winners' Cup, but was prevented from competing in the European Cup due to the ban on English teams competing. Lastly, if Manchester City were to win the Champions League this season, I think their team of the last 3 years would have to merit inclusion. Pep Guardiola's side could potentially have won 2 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups, 3 League Cups and a Champions League inside 3 seasons, playing a delightful brand of football previously unseen on these shores. And even if they don't, both they and Liverpool deserve honourable mentions for their last 3 seasons. Liverpool 1981-82 to 1983-84. The greatest team in the history of English football over a 3-year period, as far as I'm concerned, is the Liverpool team from 1981 to 1984. Liverpool had a remarkable 17 to 18 years from the early 1970s right up to 1990, and we've already seen one team from that era feature in this 7. Whilst the team of 75 to 78 were marginally more successful, I believe the team of 81 to 84 would have beaten them. We'll start by talking about the trophies, which included 3 First Division titles, 3 League Cups and 1 European Cup. This was another significant transition period for Liverpool following a 5th place finish in 1981, their worst in a decade. In came Mark Lawrenson, Ian Rush and Ronnie Whelan, among others, as Paisley took Liverpool back to the top of the tree in England. Paisley retired in 1983, and in the last of these 3 seasons, in which Liverpool won the European Cup and a famous treble, the Reds were managed by Joe Fagan. The Liverpool team which won that European Cup final on penalties against Roma is, I think, probably the best Liverpool team that there has ever been. From Bruce Grobbelaar between the sticks, to Hansen and Lawrenson at centre-back, Kennedy and Neil at full-back, Souness running the show in the middle of the park, and obviously King Kenny and Ian Rush in attack, it was a team virtually without weakness, and a worthy winner as England's, and indeed one of Europe's, greatest ever sides. So that's it for today's video. Thank you as ever for watching, give us a like if you enjoyed the video or found it remotely entertaining, let us know your thoughts in the comments, and feel free to subscribe to HITC Sevens.